On this episode of MeatEater, we're stepping out of the field and into the kitchen, a place where every hunter and angler should learn to feel at home. I'm going to show you how to prepare a collection of my favorite wild game dishes. Dishes that are easy to make, yet sophisticated in flavor. Let's get cooking. I'm Stephen Rinella. To me, hunting isn't only about the pursuit of an animal. It's about who we are and what we're made of. I live to hunt and hunt to live. I am a meat eater. I think of wild game as being both the first and final frontiers of cooking. Our species' relationship to wild food spans back to the beginning of time. It is our ancestral diet. Today, it presents the most exciting and immersive food experience you can possibly get. If you want to have an A to Z relationship with your food, where you're in charge every step of the way, wild game is for you. And today, we're going to cover some of the best and most fail-safe recipes for some of North America's most widely available game species: rainbow trout, a couple of venison recipes, mourning dove, and mallard duck. But first, wild turkey.
The best tasting turkey doesn't even come close to the deer backstrap.
That's not true. I feel that they're a magical bird. We're gonna cook some turkey.
There are a lot of things I like to do with wild turkeys, and one of them is to make wild turkey sausage. Now, I'm a big fan of wild turkeys, and I've cooked it plenty of ways. From turkey galantine, to stuffed breast fillets, to turkey schnitzel. But this time, we're gonna grind up a batch of turkey sausage. What's cool about it is you're taking your bird and you're able to stretch it out over many meals throughout the year. So if you take a big male turkey, you can wind up with 10 pounds of turkey sausage. And if you freeze that in half-pound bags, you can imagine 20 breakfasts over the course of the year you can get out and make some delicious breakfast patties. Start out with a 2-pound mixture of skinless turkey breasts and boneless, skinless meat from the thighs and drumsticks. Cut it into 1-inch cubes. Add in 14 ounces of diced bacon. Then, in a heated pan with oil, begin sautéing your onion. Sauté it until it starts to turn translucent, probably about 6 to 8 minutes. And then add the apples. Spread your apples and onions on a sheet tray and set them to cool. Compile all the sausage ingredients pass through a grinder using a 3/16 plate. Form your sausage patties and sear them until browned on both sides and cooked in the middle. I like to serve the sausage with eggs and some toast. It's a breakfast fit for a turkey hunter. Now, onto rainbow trout.
That right there is the perfect size rainbow trout for the table.
You can eat them in many, many ways. From poached in an elixir of vinegar for blue trout to roasted whole over an open fire. But if I had to pick one trout preparation for the rest of my life, it'd be smoked trout. And I'm gonna show you a very simple method for making smoked trout using ingredients that can be found in pretty much anyone's pantry. I typically smoke trout ranging up to around 14 or 15 inches. This recipe can also work for mountain whitefish, American eels, or really any small oily fish. Make the brine. Combine all your ingredients. And stir vigorously to dissolve the salt and sugar. You should be able to whisk all the ingredients together. If not, you can boil it to dissolve everything, and then chill it back out again before putting the fish in. Place the fish in a non-reactive container and pour the brine over. Place a weight such as a plate on top of the fish to keep them submerged in the brine. Now let them chill in the fridge for 4 to 6 hours. Discard the brine and rinse the trout under cold, clean water. Place them back in the fridge uncovered until they feel tacky when you touch them. This allows the smoke to adhere to the skin. Set your smoker at a temp of around 170 degrees. You can lay the trout on a rack or truss them for hanging. We're going to hang the trout in the smoker and then come back to check on them in a couple hours. Total cooking time could take as long as 4 or 5.
A shameful number of venison ribs get thrown out every year by American hunters, or guys just kind of unenthusiastically bone them out and add them to the burger pile. What a lot of people don't realize is you can make great bone-in rib recipes with your venison ribs if you just apply a little low, slow heat first and then go to the grill.
At times I've gone pretty caveman with ribs, laying a rack of them right over the fire. Here's a set of Dall sheep ribs done in that way. It can be delicious, especially when you're half starved from running around in the mountains for a week. But they can be a tad tough.
You gotta fight with it a little bit.
So I'm going to show you a preparation that eliminates the chewiness. This recipe calls for a full slab of deer ribs. Venison ribs are tricky. A lot of guys just don't like to mess with them. Admittedly, they can be pretty fatty, and once you get most of that fat off, there's not that much meat there. What I like to do with ribs is leave them bone in, with as much meat on them as possible. Using a hacksaw or bone saw, cut the ribs perpendicular to the bones. Then, cut the ribs into strips containing 3 to 4 ribs apiece. Apply the seasoning and rub it in. Place the ribs into a slow cooker and add just enough stock or water to cover them. Set it on high and let it go for 3 or 4 hours until almost fork tender. Now we're going to check on the trout. Remove the fish from the smoker and allow it to cool so they can be handled comfortably. They're done when you can peel the skin off and easily remove the meat from the bones. You can eat it straight, which is perfect, or add the meat into cream cheese, or else make a more elaborate smoked trout dip. Once your ribs are nearing fork tender, they're ready for the grill. Since they've already been cooked, you're simply reheating the meat and charring it a bit on the outside. Once the ribs have begun to crisp, coat them generously with barbecue sauce and continue to cook for a couple more minutes, allowing the sauce to caramelize and thicken. Now, let's turn our attention to another bone-in venison recipe.
I'm gonna show you one of the easiest, best tasting things you can possibly do with a deer shoulder. It's called the bone-in blade roast with root vegetables. And a lot of guys will look at this and think it's only good to be boned out and ground into burger, but I'm telling you, after a few hours in a slow cooker, you can pick this thing apart with your fingers.
First thing you want to do is take your whole venison shoulder and trim away any big pieces of fat or discolored meat. Now take a saw. You can use a sawzall or a hacksaw or a butcher's saw and cut it into pieces. I cut the shank off and saved that for making ossobuco. And then, depending on the size of the shoulder, cut it into 2 or 3 pieces. Rub a liberal amount of salt and pepper into the blade roast, making sure you're hitting all surfaces. And then brown it in a combination of butter and vegetable oil. Once the roast is seared on all sides, pull it out of the pan and set it aside. In the same pan, begin sauteing your onion. Saute it until it starts to turn translucent, probably about 6 to 8 minutes. Add your garlic. I like to use whole cloves, or if they're really big, half clove, and saute them for another 2 to 3 minutes. Sprinkle in your herbs. Lay the browned meat into a slow cooker. Put the onions and garlic on top, and then cover it about 3/4 of the way up with simmering stock. Add a few glugs of red wine. Set the slow cooker to medium and let it go. It's going to cook for several hours or more.
The cook time on the blade roast depends on the idiosyncrasies of whatever animal you're cooking. I'd be surprised if you got it done in less than 3 hours, and I'd be surprised if it took more than 6.
Once the blade roast is fork tender, you want to add in your carrots, potatoes, and celery. And then let the whole thing go for another 45 minutes to an hour. When the potatoes are cooked, it's time to dig in.
One of the things I love about summer sausage is that everybody likes summer sausage. Another thing is it's nearly indestructible. You can put it in your backpack on a hunting trip and it tastes as good 3 days in as it did on day 1. Also, it's really versatile, so it's great for hunting, but it's also good if you're having a fancy holiday party. I'm gonna show you how to take your own wild game meat and make summer sausage that is better than 90% of the stuff you're ever gonna find in a grocery store.
This recipe calls for 7 pounds of boneless game meat and 3 pounds of pork back fat diced into cubes. Add the seasonings and blend thoroughly. Season the meat and mix together. Run the meat through a grinder fitted with a 3/16 inch plate. Mix together 1 cup of fermento and stir it in. Mix thoroughly. Cover in plastic wrap and set in your fridge for 2 days to ferment. When you're ready to stuff the summer sausage, prep your collagen casings. Tie off the end of the stuffed casing and put it into a smoker set at 180 degrees. Smoke for several hours until the sausage reaches an internal temperature of 150 degrees. In terms of hunter participation, white-tailed deer are the most hunted for species in America. But in terms of harvest numbers, nothing approaches the mourning dove. Every year, hunters across 40 states kill well over 10 million of these abundant and widespread birds. Many of those birds are prepared as poppers, an extremely popular preparation that pairs dove meat with cream cheese, bacon, and jalapeno. I'll admit, it's pretty damn good. I would venture to say that more pounds of dove meat will be prepared in this way than all other dove recipes combined. But it's probably like one of the crowd-pleasingest ways to cook.
Right, you can like talk anybody into trying a popper, because it sounds like something you're getting at a restaurant.
Exactly.
You know, it's like, oh, I love poppers.
But as good as dove poppers are, I don't like them nearly as much as I like whole fried dove, which is way cooler looking and puts more of the dove to use. Pluck your doves and rinse them under cold water. Then set them out to dry. Heat your fry oil to 375 degrees and combine your breading material. Thoroughly coat the dove in the breading material, making sure to cover all surfaces. Working with just a few birds at a time, drop them into the hot oil and fry for 4 minutes. Roll them around a bit as they cook so that all sides turn brown and crispy. Remove the doves from the oil and place them on a platter lined with paper towels. Before serving, drop some sprigs of curly parsley into the oil and let them fry for 1 minute. Garnish the plate with the curly parsley and serve as soon as the doves are cool enough to handle. This is finger food, so dig in and get dirty. Now that it's been a couple of hours, it's time to go get the summer sausage from the smoker. Set the finished summer sausage on a rack to cool before moving them into your refrigerator for storage. It's a product to be proud of, good as a holiday appetizer or a mountaintop snack.
Here they come. Oh man, this is one of my absolute favorite pieces of game meat. Love these things.
I find that a lot of hunters are intimidated by cooking wild duck. If you are, you shouldn't be. I'm going to show you a very easy way to make wild duck.
Now this is a skin-on recipe, where you're using the duck's skin and fat. So it's most appropriate for puddle ducks, such as mallards, wood ducks, pintails, gadwalls, widgeons. Start out by plucking the duck. And then remove the breast and leg so you have one piece that's a boneless breast with a bone-in leg. Use a torch or stovetop burner to singe away any pin feathers or hairs. An option is to score the skin with a knife, which makes it easier to eat. Season the duck halves on both sides with salt and pepper. Heat some oil in a heavy pan over medium-high heat. Start by searing the breast skin side down. Let it sear until the skin is crisp and beginning to brown. flip the duck and place it into a 400-degree oven. Duck is best served still red and juicy in the middle, so pull it when it hits about 125 degrees in the thickest part.
The key on the duck is do not overcook it. When you get done and slice it, you should still see a little bit of red. Wild duck goes particularly well with any kind of fruit flavor. My favorite is a fruit chutney.
If you're not making the most of your wild game by feeding it to your family and feeding it to your friends, you're doing yourself a disservice and you're not treating the resource as respectfully as it deserves. Wild game is delicious. It's exciting. It's educational. It's healthy. It's personal. In short, it's everything that store-bought meat could ever hope to be, with mounds of bonuses and benefits added on top. It's a bizarre world we live in, with so much that's completely out of our control. But with wild game, you can take hold of one of the most elemental parts of your existence, your food, and make that your own. Trust me, your efforts will be rewarded.